What happens when two titans of morning television clash in the most explosive way possible, live on air, with millions watching? You're about to witness the most shocking moment in Good Morning America history, as Steve Harvey faces off against MichaelStrahan in a confrontation that nobody saw coming. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think really happened behind the scenes. Now, let's get into it. The morning started like any other at the Good Morning America studios in Times Square. Steve Harvey had arrived early for what was supposed to be a routine promotional interview for his latest book. The king of comedy was in high spirits, greeting crew members with his signature charm and infectious laugh. He had done this dance countless times before, smooth sailing through morning show appearances with his quick wit and natural charisma. But as Steve settled into the guest chair across from MichaelStrahan, something felt different. The usual warmth between television personalities was noticeably absent. Strahan's smile seemed forced, his demeanor unusually cold as he shuffled through his notes with an intensity that made the production crew exchange worried glances. "Good morning, Steve," Michael said, his voice carrying an edge that experienced television viewers would immediately recognize as trouble brewing. "Thanks for joining us today to talk about your new book." Steve leaned back in his chair, flashing that million-dollar smile that had made him a household name. "Always a pleasure, Michael. You know I love coming on GMA. Great show, great people." "Speaking of great people," Michael continued, his tone shifting slightly, "I have to ask you about something that's been making waves in the industry lately. There are some allegations floating around about your conduct on set, particularly how you treat your staff." The smile on Steve's face flickered for just a moment, like a candle in the wind. The seasoned entertainer had faced tough questions before, but something about Michael's delivery felt personal, almost aggressive. "Well, Michael, I think you know as well as anyone that in this business, people love to talk," Steve replied, his voice maintaining its smooth cadence but with a hint of steel underneath. "I've been doing this for decades, and I've always prided myself on running a professional operation." "Professional," Michael repeated, leaning forward slightly. "That's interesting, because I've been hearing some very different stories. Stories about intimidation, about creating a hostile work environment. Care to comment on those specific allegations?" The camera operator zoomed in slightly, sensing the tension building between the two hosts. In the control room, producers were debating whether to cut to commercial, but the raw drama unfolding was television gold. Steve's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Michael, I'm not sure where you're getting your information, but I think we both know that rumors and gossip are part of this industry. I've always treated my team with respect, and anyone who knows me personally can attest to that." "But that's just it, Steve," Michael pressed on, his voice growing more confrontational. "I am speaking to people who know you personally, people who have worked with you, and the picture they're painting isn't very flattering." The audience in the studio began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the lighthearted banter they had expected from their morning television. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and both men seemed to be circling each other like predators. "You know what, Michael?" Steve said, his famous composure starting to crack. "I came here to talk about my book, to share something positive with the viewers who have supported me throughout my career. I didn't come here for an ambush interview." "Ambush?" Michael's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. "Steve, this is journalism. This is what we do. We ask the tough questions. Surely someone with your experience can handle a little scrutiny." The condescending tone in Michael's voice was unmistakable now, and Steve's eyes narrowed. The king of comedy was used to being the one in control, the one asking the questions on his own shows. Being on the receiving end of what felt like a calculated attack was clearly getting under his skin. "Handle scrutiny?" Steve repeated, his voice rising slightly. "Brother, I've been handling scrutiny since before you knew what a television camera was. But there's a difference between asking tough questions and trying to tear someone down on live television." "I'm not trying to tear anyone down," Michael shot back, his own voice growing louder. "I'm trying to get to the truth. Isn't that what the audience deserves? The truth about who you really are when the cameras aren't rolling?" Steve stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. The studio fell silent, except for the hum of the cameras and the collective intake of breath from the audience. This was uncharted territory for morning television. "The truth?" Steve's voice boomed across the studio. "You want the truth, Michael? The truth is that you've been gunning for me since the moment I walked in here. This isn't journalism. This is a hit job, and I won't stand for it." Michael remained seated, a smug smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Steve, Please sit down. You're making a scene. Making a scene? Steve's laugh was sharp and bitter. Michael, you started this scene the moment you decided to turn what should have been a friendly interview into an interrogation. I've been in this business long enough to know when someone is trying to play me. The tension reached a boiling point as both men stared at each other across the coffee table that now felt like a battlefield. The crew members were frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let the drama play out. In homes across America, viewers were glued to their screens, witnessing television history in the making. You know what your problem is, Michael? Steve continued, his voice steady but filled with barely contained fury. You think because you've got this platform, you can come after anyone you want. You think you can destroy someone's reputation based on gossip and hearsay? Michael finally stood up, matching Steve's energy. I think my problem is that I'm trying to hold people accountable for their actions. Something that apparently doesn't happen enough in your world. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Steve's face transformed. The jovial entertainer that America loved was gone, replaced by a man who had been pushed too far. The stage was set for an explosion that would change morning television forever. My world? Steve's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more weight than his earlier shouting. Let me tell you about my world, Michael. My world is built on hard work, dedication, and treating people with respect. Something you clearly know nothing about. Michael's smug expression faltered for just a moment before he regained his composure. Oh, that's rich coming from you. The same Steve Harvey who reportedly made his staff sign agreements about not looking him in the eye? The same Steve Harvey who allegedly screams at people for the smallest mistakes? Allegedly, Steve repeated, emphasizing each syllable. That's a convenient word, isn't it? Allegedly means you can say whatever you want without any proof. Allegedly means you can destroy someone's character without consequences. The audience was completely silent now, their morning coffee forgotten as they witnessed this unprecedented meltdown. In the control room, the director was frantically trying to decide whether to cut the feed, but the ratings were spiking through the roof. I have sources, Steve, Michael said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. Multiple sources who paint a very disturbing picture of how you operate behind closed doors. Sources? Steve laughed bitterly. Let me guess, these sources want to remain anonymous, right? How convenient. You know what I call that, Michael? Cowardice. If someone has something to say about me, they should have the courage to say it to my face. Michael leaned back slightly, clearly enjoying the reaction he was getting. Well, I'm saying it to your face right now. Your reputation in this industry isn't what you pretend it is on television. My reputation? Steve's eyes blazed with fury. I've been entertaining people for over 30 years. I've helped families. I've given back to communities. I've built a legacy based on making people laugh and feel good about themselves. What have you built, Michael? What's your legacy besides trying to tear down other people? My legacy is asking the tough questions that other people are afraid to ask. Michael shot back. My legacy is holding celebrities accountable when they think they're above criticism. Above criticism? Steve stepped closer to Michael, his imposing frame casting a shadow over the former football player. I've never claimed to be above criticism, but there's a difference between legitimate criticism and a personal vendetta disguised as journalism. Michael didn't back down, meeting Steve's intense stare with his own. Personal vendetta? Steve, this isn't personal. This is professional. This is about transparency and honesty with our viewers. Don't insult my intelligence, Steve growled. This is as personal as it gets, and we both know it. You've been waiting for this opportunity, haven't you? Waiting for your chance to take a shot at the king of comedy. The tension between them was electric, and the crew members were starting to look genuinely concerned about the situation escalating beyond words. Security personnel began moving closer to the set, ready to intervene if necessary. Take a shot? Michael's voice rose again. Steve, I'm simply doing my job. If you can't handle basic questions about your professional conduct, maybe that says more about you than it does about me. Basic questions? Steve's laugh was harsh and mirthless. Michael, you ambushed me on live television with unsubstantiated rumors and gossip. That's not journalism. That's character assassination. Character assassination? Michael seemed genuinely offended by the accusation. Steve, I'm giving you a platform to defend yourself. I'm giving you the opportunity to set the record straight. Set the record straight about what? Steve demanded. About lies and rumors that you're treating as fact? About anonymous sources who are too cowardly to show their faces? This isn't journalism, Michael. This is a witch hunt. The words hung heavy in the air as both men stared at each other with undisguised hostility. The friendly facade that morning television usually maintained had completely crumbled, revealing the raw human emotions underneath. "You know what I think this is really about?" Steve continued, his voice gaining momentum. "I think this is about jealousy. I think this is about the fact that I built something bigger than you could ever imagine, and it's eating you alive." Michael's face flushed red with anger. "Jealousy? Of what exactly? Your inflated ego? Your reputation for being difficult to work with? Your complete inability to handle legitimate criticism?" "My success," Steve said simply, his voice cutting through Michael's bluster like a knife. "My longevity. My ability to connect with people in a way that you never could. That's what this is about, isn't it?" "Your success?" Michael's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You mean your success at creating a toxic work environment? Your success at intimidating people who can't fight back?" Steve's hands clenched into fists at his sides, and for a moment, it looked like the confrontation might turn physical. The security team took another step closer, ready to intervene. "You want to talk about intimidation?" Steve's voice was deadly quiet now. "Let's talk about what you're doing right here, right now. You're using your platform to bully someone, to try to destroy their reputation based on nothing but rumors and hearsay." "I'm holding you accountable," Michael insisted. "Something that apparently doesn't happen often enough in your circle." "Accountable for what?" Steve exploded. "For building a successful career? For demanding professionalism from my team? For having standards? If that makes me difficult, then I wear that badge with pride." Michael shook his head dismissively. "Steve, listen to yourself. You're proving my point with every word you say. This attitude, this arrogance, this is exactly what people are talking about." "Arrogance?" Steve's voice rose to match Michael's energy. "You want to talk about arrogance? How about the arrogance of a man who thinks he can destroy someone's reputation on live television? How about the arrogance of someone who thinks gossip and rumors constitute legitimate journalism?" The studio audience was completely captivated now, watching this unprecedented breakdown of professional decorum. Social media was exploding with clips and commentary, as viewers shared their shock at what they were witnessing. "I'm not trying to destroy anything," Michael said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I'm trying to get to the truth about who Steve Harvey really is when the cameras stop rolling." "The truth?" Steve stepped even closer, his presence overwhelming. "Here's the truth, Michael. The truth is that you're a small man trying to make yourself feel bigger by tearing down someone else. The truth is that you're using your position to settle some kind of personal score." "Personal score?" Michael's voice cracked slightly under the pressure. "Steve, I barely know you personally. This is about your professional reputation, nothing more." "Don't lie to me," Steve snarled. "We both know there's more to this story. We both know you've been planning this attack for weeks, maybe months. This isn't spontaneous journalism. This is a calculated hit job." The accusations seemed to strike a nerve, and Michael's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. His smugness was replaced by something darker, more desperate. "You want to know what this is really about?" Michael's voice turned venomous, all pretense of professionalism finally abandoned. "This is about accountability, Steve. This is about someone finally having the courage to call you out on your behavior." Steve's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Courage? You call ambushing someone on live television courage? That's not courage, Michael. That's cowardice of the highest order." "Cowardice?" Michael laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm sitting here asking you direct questions to your face. If anyone's being a coward, it's you, running away from legitimate criticism." "Running away?" Steve's voice boomed across the studio. "Brother, I've never run away from anything in my life, but I also don't have to sit here and let you assassinate my character based on lies and gossip." The control room was in chaos now, with producers screaming conflicting instructions about whether to cut the feed or let it continue. The ratings were astronomical, but this was uncharted territory for network television. "Lies and gossip?" Michael stood up straighter, trying to match Steve's imposing presence. "These are serious allegations from credible sources about your treatment of staff members." "That's not gossip, that's journalism." "Credible sources?" Steve's laugh was bitter and sharp. "Michael, you haven't named a single source. You haven't provided a single piece of evidence. You're destroying someone's reputation based on anonymous rumors, and you have the audacity to call it journalism?" Michael's face was flushed red now, his carefully maintained composure completely shattered. You know what, Steve? Maybe the reason these sources want to remain anonymous is because they're afraid of retaliation from you. Maybe they're afraid of what happens when they cross the great Steve Harvey. Retaliation? Steve's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than his earlier shouting. The only retaliation happening here is what you're doing to me right now. You're retaliating against my success, my longevity, my ability to connect with people. Your ability to connect with people? Michael's voice cracked with disbelief. Steve, we're talking about your inability to treat your own staff with basic human decency. Basic human decency? Steve stepped forward again, now close enough that Michael had to look up to meet his eyes. Let me tell you about basic human decency, Michael. Basic human decency is not ambushing someone on live television. Basic human decency is not trying to destroy someone's career based on rumors. The studio audience was completely silent now, afraid to even breathe as they witnessed this unprecedented confrontation. Security guards were positioned around the set, ready to step in if the situation escalated beyond words. You keep saying rumors, Michael said, his voice shaking slightly. But what if they're not rumors, Steve? What if these are real experiences from real people who worked for you? Then let them come forward, Steve challenged. Let them show their faces. Let them provide evidence. But that's not what's happening here, is it? What's happening here is that you're using your platform to spread unsubstantiated allegations. Michael's composure was completely gone now, replaced by raw desperation. Steve, I'm giving you the opportunity to address these concerns. I'm giving you a chance to explain your side of the story. My side of the story? Steve's voice rose again. Michael, there is no story. There's just you trying to create controversy where none exists. There's just you trying to make headlines by tearing down someone who's worked their entire life to build something meaningful. Meaningful? Michael's voice turned mocking. Is intimidating your staff meaningful? Is creating a hostile work environment meaningful? You know what's meaningful? Steve's voice was deadly quiet now. What's meaningful is the thousands of families I've helped through my foundation. What's meaningful is the careers I've launched, the dreams I've supported, the communities I've invested in. But none of that matters to you, does it? Michael seemed taken aback by the shift in Steve's tone, but he pressed on. That doesn't excuse how you treat the people who work for you directly. How I treat people? Steve's voice began to rise again. Michael, I treat people with the same respect they show me. I demand professionalism because I am professional. I have standards because excellence requires standards. Standards or intimidation? Michael shot back. There's a difference between having standards and creating fear in your workplace. Fear? Steve's laugh was harsh. The only fear I see here is your fear of my success. Your fear that I've built something bigger and more lasting than anything you could ever achieve. Michael's face contorted with rage. This isn't about your success, Steve. This is about your character. This is about who you really are when nobody's watching. Who I really am. Steve stepped back slightly, his voice taking on a different quality. I'll tell you who I really am, Michael. I'm a man who came from nothing and built something extraordinary. I'm a man who's never forgotten where he came from or the people who helped him along the way. Then why won't you address these allegations directly? Michael pressed, sensing a moment of vulnerability. Because they're not allegations, Steve said firmly. They're lies. They're character assassination disguised as journalism, and I won't dignify them with a response. The tension in the studio was suffocating now. Both men were breathing heavily, their faces flushed with anger and adrenaline. The crew members were frozen in place, afraid to move or speak. You know what, Michael? Steve's voice suddenly turned calm, which was somehow more terrifying than his earlier anger. I came here in good faith to talk about my book, to share something positive with the viewers who have supported me throughout my career. Steve, I was just doing my job, Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Your job? Steve's smile was cold and humorless. Your job is supposed to be entertaining people, informing them, making their mornings a little brighter. Instead, you chose to turn this into a circus. Michael opened his mouth to respond, but Steve held up a hand to stop him. I'm done here, Steve said simply. I'm not going to sit here and let you continue this character assassination. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of watching me defend myself against lies and rumors. Steve, please, Michael said, but there was desperation in his voice.